I've spent 20 odd years in direct marketing, CRM, customer marketing, whatever you want to call it. And the great thing is that it stays interesting because stuff keeps changing, and we find new ways of trying to engage with customers, new ways of talking to them. There's new media channels, and there's a few things that have been going on over the last few years that have sort of really made me scratch my head a bit and think about life a bit more. So what is the data that we can really cost efficiently bring to bear to make our customer marketing more effective? What's the sort of data side of getting that stuff all together? And then you look at the non-transactional content side of things. What's the sort of content that's going to add value to my marketing, to my customers, and add value in that space? And then how do those two things come together in order to make our relationship so strong that people choose us as opposed to choosing competitors? And for me, that has three dimensions. We're trying to grow sales, we're trying to grow advocacy, and we're trying to grow brand equity. And the brand equity and the advocacy thing do, of course, translate into sales down the track, but they are worthwhile pursuits in their own right because of that. And then I play that back to myself and I say, well, if that's the case, what is the value of this sort of slightly abstract content that I start seeing brand owners talking to me about, especially when I actually click through that link that says, share your New Year budgeting tips. I click on that and I see that a few weeks later, 45 people have engaged with that bit of content. And I'm doing some very rough fag packet maths in my head saying, well, Confused.com must have a lot of customers and a big, big prospect base, let's say the whole country. Is that 45 good? Is that a good use of my time trying to talk to those people? So I did a quick bit of analysis on all the email links on this non-transactional content that I'd had from Confused.com over the period. And I see that, broadly speaking, of their 1 million plus customer base and their, let's say, every household in the UK prospect base, there's not a deep and meaningful conversation going on here. And then I take a note at the last thing and say, but lots of people want to look at their new ad. And as I say, you get that multiple thing going on that intuitively has a logical progression to it. So this is a study from Columbia Business School that I think is really interesting. So 57% of marketers not basing their budgeting decisions on any ROI analysis. 37% of respondents not including any mention of financial outcomes when asked to define ROI. And then going on, this is the one that sort of really is the big deal for us as we think about unlocking data. 51% say the lack of sharing customer data in their own organization is a barrier. Okay, that is the world I live in. I don't know how about everyone else in the room, but getting at the customer data, getting at any of the corporate data can be a bit of a problem. I'm not trying to question whether content marketing is a good idea. I actually have no doubt it's a good idea. I'm trying to get at what bit of it is a good idea and where does the specific value come from. And similarly with data good, but what data really good? These are the questions that we're trying to unlock in here and trying to get to the bottom of, because they're the things that you action in real life.
What can we do with data, right? So as Matt mentioned, right, we had different customer IDs and a whole bunch of measures associated with those customer IDs. So as you can see over here, I have purchases. So on the top, what I'm showing is for different types of purchase categories, what's my average revenue? Then what's the revenue I'm generating? So it looks like search is where I make the most amount of revenue, followed by event, phone, referral, and mail. If I now look at non-interactions, I created a simple histogram out of it, and it actually looks like the color on here is revenue. So it actually looks like this is a perfect normal curve, and it's very interesting because what it tells us is more interaction does not mean more money. Then a simple bar chart, which gives us all the non-transactional interactions, just sorted it descending by revenue. And right away I can see that, okay, I should invest more on the videos. And here's a little scatter plot around revenue and page views, along with revenue and email clicks. There is a diminishing factor here with the page views and the revenue that it generates. So more page views beyond a certain point does not necessarily translate into more revenue.
This is really interesting. We need to get into this, but we're not there yet. And so I looked back in time, and I suddenly remembered that I'd spent a lot of time working with B2B organizations, professional services companies, marketing technology companies, all sorts of people. And I'd totally forgotten how central content marketing and data are to their marketing models. So what this schematic basically shows you is that the way that these guys see the world is we have people out there who are not yet ready to buy, and we have people out there who are ready to buy, and if they're not ready to buy, we're going to keep talking to them so they remember us and they keep coming back to us, and then when they are ready to buy, we'll have that conversation. So they have a whole engagement strategy. Now, that engagement strategy is driven by content. It's driven by giving people information and stuff that they will find interesting. And what you can see very clearly is a relationship between different types of content and ROI. So if you think about this model where we're trying to engage people, we have all this different stuff, we have our white papers, we have our podcasts, we have our webinars, and then we understand how that converts over time, because sitting behind this is a CRM system that allows us to understand who's engaged with what. We can then correlate that with future sales and value. And what that helps start thinking about is where should those relationships be. And it's also true that you can see differences in the data that's being fed into those models. So, and again, it probably intuitively makes sense, but in this example here, all that sort of hard, almost traditional, if you like, CRM and direct marketing data is the stuff that plays well to sales conversion. So what's coming out of the CRM system, what's happening at the telesales operation, those are the things that those interactions are the ones that translate best to value. But there is some interesting stuff happening around some of that social media stuff and around some of the web engagement areas, where is not proving good for this client as an investment in time and energy are Facebook and another social platform that businesses tend to use a lot, which is SlideShare. So immediately we can start helping this client make some decisions around where they should be investing their content and data efforts, and using that to optimize ROI in their business performance. This idea of sharing customer data is a big barrier. So one thing is trying not to overwhelm the organization with requests for data. And one of the tactics that I've found that works a lot is trying to get a feeling for what data I think could add value for me and just asking for that one piece. Just getting one step at a time, making something happen. The second piece is getting sample data. Not worrying too much about getting all the data, but getting enough to prove a point. Low-hanging fruit, what is it easy to get hold of? That the web data was hosted at a third-party organization, not hosted by their IT team, that was relatively easy to get hold of because there wasn't the department that likes to say no. And the final thing is getting senior manager support for this sort of activity, and that's about generally making a business case. I don't think you can come up with a business case that's cast iron, but what you can do is show people the sort of impact that can be made. People just need to get a flavour of what the difference could be to understand whether it's worthwhile. So why is that all relevant to different people maybe in this room? And I picked on just a couple of things. I think for charities, there's two interesting things in here. So Institute of Fundraising study last year, only 30% of fundraising managers said, agreed with the statement that my organisation has a clear, tangible case for support. Now, if you haven't got a clear, tangible case for support that you can articulate to an audience, the fact is you ain't going to be raising as much money or generating as much support as you can. Content has to be at the heart of how you create that case for support. You have to find the ways to get those points over. You have to find the ways to connect with people who are going to then move from, maybe making that first donation, as Mike said earlier, to actually staying with you and understanding where that value and where that relationship sits over time. And as I say, content and data are absolutely at the heart of understanding that and deciding where to make those investments. Right now, in fact, if you go to any awards dinner, anything to do with marketing, it's holiday and travel that is dominating the smart use of data type stuff. There's a hell of a lot of that going on. And if you think about it, the whole idea of holidays and travel is rich in potential content opportunities. The challenge that gives you is what is the right content to talk to them about? What is the content that's going to make a difference in driving value and driving relationships, brand equity, transactional value, advocacy out of that customer base? So I'd summarize our findings to date in this area in this way. Which data is most powerful? From the data we have looked at so far, you will not get away from the fact that transactional data, what are people doing, is the big the thing that correlates best with value. But interaction data, getting people to engage with stuff, definitely seems to have value to a point. And a third powerful piece is that response data. It's how do people engage specifically with your marketing communications, your transactional marketing communications. And which content tends to be powerful? Well, I've described it here as anchored in the brand promise, but I think there is something about making sure that you have a clear permission to talk to people about what it is you're talking to them about because of your reputation and what your brand stands for. And similarly, addressing a need in your content seems to be helpful so far. We have an offer for you. If you want to be in this project and you think you have the sort of data around content that will be interesting, then we can put you into this project.